Welcome, dear viewers. For more exclusive, thrilling stories every week, join our membership. Sit back, relax, and sip your coffee. Enjoy. I never fully believed in Pele's curse until it crawled into my life and made a home there. You've probably heard the stories. Tourists who pocket volcanic rocks or sand from Hawaii's beaches, only to mail them back with frantic letters detailing their misfortunes. Car accidents, divorces, illnesses that doctors can't explain. The legend says that Pele, goddess of fire and volcanoes, protects these islands fiercely. Take a piece of her domain, and she'll make you regret it. My name is Kai Makamura. I was born in Honolulu but grew up in San Diego after my parents divorced. My father stayed here on Oahu, while my mother took me to the mainland. 28 years later, I returned to the island when Dad had his stroke. Just until he recovers, I told my girlfriend back in California. That was 8 months ago. Dad's physical therapy has been slow, and his medical bills stacked up faster than I could manage with my savings. So I found a job at Kahuna's, this little tiki bar in Waikiki, where tourists come to drink overpriced Mai Tais and act like they've discovered authentic Hawaiian culture. The place sits at the end of a row of beachfront properties, nestled between the Halekulani Hotel and a line of banyan trees that's been there longer than any building around it. From the outside, Kahuna's looks like every other tourist trap. Thatched roofing, bamboo railings, and tiki torches that flicker all night. But there's something different about this place that I didn't notice until it was too late. I started in mid-February. The manager, a middle-aged local named Leilani, hired me on the spot when I mentioned my bartending experience from San Diego. "You'll need to follow some special rules here," she said, sliding a laminated card across the bar top. "This place has traditions." I glanced at the card, thinking it would be the usual service industry stuff. Always ID customers. Don't overserve. But the rules listed were different, oddly specific and frankly bizarre. "Is this some kind of Haioli initiation?" I asked, using the Hawaiian term for non-natives, even though I was technically native myself. Leilani didn't smile. "These aren't jokes, Kai. This building stands on sacred ground. The old ones made arrangements to build here. We honor those arrangements." I almost walked out then. It sounded like superstitious nonsense, the kind of stuff my grandmother would mutter about before she passed away. But the pay was good, really good, and Dad's insurance had denied his last round of therapy. "Fine," I said, pocketing the card. "I'll play along." Her eyes darkened. "This isn't a game. Break these rules, and terrible things happen." I started the next night, and that's when I learned that at Kahuna's Tiki Bar, Pele's curse is the least of your worries. My first shift at Kahuna's started at sunset. I arrived early, watching tourists scatter from Waikiki Beach as the sky deepened to amber. Surfers caught final waves while honeymooners snapped photos of the horizon. None of them noticed me slipping into the back entrance of the Tiki Bar, key card in hand. Inside, Leilani was arranging bottles behind the curved wooden bar. The place was empty. We wouldn't open for another hour. "Good, you're punctual," she said without looking up. "The uniform is in the back room." The uniform turned out to be a simple black button-up and slacks, classier than the Hawaiian shirts I'd expected. When I returned, Leilani was lighting small oil lamps spaced evenly along the bar. "These stay lit all night," she said. "No matter what." She pointed to the laminated card I'd received yesterday. "Read them again. Memorize them." I pulled the card from my wallet. 5 rules were printed in an elegant typeface. 1. Never serve the last customer of the night a drink with rum. 2. If a woman asks for the Madame Pell special, prepare only pineapple juice with grenadine. Nothing more. 3. The back storeroom remains locked between midnight and 3 a.m. for any reason. 4. When you hear drumming from the beach, close all windows immediately. 5. Never, under any circumstances, accept gifts or tips that come from the sea. Shells, coral, sand, etc. Is this for real? I asked. Leilani's face remained neutral. You think I would joke about this? But what happens if... Bad things, she interrupted. Very bad things. She wouldn't elaborate further, just moved on to showing me the register system and drink menu. Standard tiki fare, Mai Tais, Blue Hawaiians, zombies, painkillers. The prices were ridiculous. $18 for a basic cocktail, but that's Waikiki for you. At precisely 7, Leilani unlocked the front doors. The warm night air carried in the scent of salt water and plumeria flowers. Within minutes, the first customers strolled in. A sunburned couple from Michigan celebrating their anniversary. The night flowed smoothly. I mixed drinks while Leilani handled food orders from our small kitchen. The crowd was typical. Tourists drinking too much and talking too loudly about their helicopter tours and snorkeling adventures. Around 11:30, the bar began emptying. A few stragglers nursed their drinks, and I started cleaning up. That's when he walked in. A local man, maybe 60, wearing a faded aloha shirt and canvas pants. He sat at the far end of the bar, away from the remaining tourists. "How's it?" he greeted, voice grainy like crushed lava rock. "Rum and coke, brother." I glanced toward Leilani, who was across the room wiping tables. She caught my eye and suddenly shook her head. "Sorry, we're out of rum," I lied. "Can I get you something else?" "Whiskey, maybe?" The man's eyes narrowed, dark and watchful. "Been coming here 20 years. You folks never run out of rum." My mouth went dry. "First time for everything. We had a big group earlier." He stared at me for an uncomfortably long time before his mouth curled into a half smile. "Whiskey, then." I poured him a double and slid it across the bar. He drank it slowly, eyes never leaving mine. The other customers gradually filtered out until just this man remained. "Last call," Leilani announced from behind me, her voice tighter than usual. The man finished his drink, laid down cash, and stood. "You're new. What's your name, bartender?" "Kai." "Kai," he repeated, rolling my name around his mouth like he was tasting it. "You listen to Leilani, yeah? She knows this place." He tapped his temple with one finger. "I come back tomorrow night. Maybe you have rum then." After he left, I exhaled. "Who was that?" Leilani locked the door behind him. "Someone who knows the rules, and tests them sometimes." She collected his glass with a tissue, rather than touching it directly. "Why can't we serve rum to the last customer?" I asked. "Because rum comes from sugarcane. An old Hawaii Kamiloa, ocean god, claimed all sweet offerings at day's end." She dropped the glass into a special bin, separate from the other dishes. "The last customer is never who they appear to be." I laughed nervously. "So what? That guy was Kaniloa." Maybe just one of his messengers." She pointed to the floor beneath where he'd sat. Water pooled there, not spilled drinks, but clear salt water, forming a small puddle on the hardwood. "But he was wearing shoes," I whispered, "and clothes." "Yes," Leilani said. "That's how they hide." She handed me a container of salt. "Sprinkle this where he sat, then go home. You did well tonight." I did as instructed, though it felt absurd. As I drove back to my father's small apartment in Kaimuki, I rationalized Leilani's behavior. Every bar has its eccentricities. This was just local superstition mixed with customer service theater. But when I got home and kicked off my shoes, I found wet sand inside them. Coarse, black volcanic sand that doesn't exist anywhere near Waikiki's white beaches. I hadn't been near any beach all day. The next morning, I woke to the buzz of my phone. Texts from my girlfriend in San Diego lit up the screen. "When are you coming home? It's been 3 months longer than you said. I'm tired of waiting. Kai." I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above my futon. The small bedroom in Dad's apartment barely fit my few possessions. From the living room, I heard the murmur of his TV, the endless background noise he claimed helped him think. "I need more time," I texted back. "Dad's getting better, but slowly. The job is good, pays well." She responded with a single thumbs down emoji. I showered and dressed, then checked on Dad. He sat in his recliner, right arm still weaker than his left, but he managed to hold his coffee. "You came in late," he said, eyes on the morning news. "Work. That Tiki Bar," he muttered. "Kahuna's, right?" I nodded, pouring my own coffee. "Funny place to end up." His tone suggested it wasn't funny at all. "You know it?" Dad shifted in his chair. "Everyone local knows it. Been there since the 70s. Same owner all these years." "Leilani?" No. He waved his good hand dismissively. "Leilani manages it. The owner's some namelander. Never shows his face." I sat across from him. "What's with all the weird rules?" Dad's eyes narrowed. "What rules?" "Nothing. Just some service stuff." "Listen, Kai." He muted the TV. "That stretch of beach isn't right. Old burial ground beneath it. When they developed Waikiki, they disturbed things." I sighed. "Dad, I'm serious. Your grandmother would tell you. That's why all those hotels have problems. Staff quit suddenly. Guests complain about voices, water damage with no source." I remembered Grandma's stories, how she'd refuse to walk certain paths at night, how she'd leave offerings at strange roadside shrines. I'd always written it off as old world superstition, something that died with her generation. "Kahuna's sits right on the worst spot," Dad continued. "That place has arrangements." The exact word Leilani had used. A chill prickled across my skin. "I need this job, Dad. Just be careful." He turned the TV volume back up. "Some rules exist for reasons we forget." My shift started at 6 that evening. The weekend crowd packed Kahuna's, tourists clutching guidebooks and taking selfies with our carved tiki statues. If any of them knew they were drinking on an alleged burial ground, they didn't show it. Around 9, I was 3 customers deep when Leilani appeared at my side. "Someone at the end asked for you specifically," she said, voice tight. "Table 11. I glanced over. A woman sat alone at our farthest table, half hidden by shadows despite the bar's ambient lighting. She wore a red dress, her dark hair falling past her shoulders. "I don't know her," I said. "Just go," Leilani urged. "I'll cover the bar." I approached the woman's table. Up close, she looked older than I'd initially thought. Maybe 40, with sharp features and skin tanned to copper. A floral scent surrounded her, not perfume, but something earthier, like actual flowers. "You asked for me?" I kept my voice professional. She smiled, revealing perfectly white teeth. "You're Kai, the new bartender." "That's right. I'd like the Madame Pele special." Her words floated clear above the bar noise. Rule 2 flashed in my mind. If a woman asks for the Madame Pele special, prepare only pineapple juice with grenadine. Nothing more. I nodded. "I'll prepare that personally." Back at the bar, I reached for the pineapple juice and grenadine, mixing them in a hurricane glass. Leilani watched from the corner of her eye as she served other customers. "Who is she?" I asked quietly. "Just bring her the drink," Leilani answered. I carried the bright red-orange beverage back to table 11. The woman's dark eyes tracked me the entire way. I set the drink before her. "Will there be anything else?" Her smile deepened. "You're obedient. That's refreshing." She lifted the glass. Most new bartenders try to improve the recipe, add rum or vodka, thinking they're being clever. My mouth went dry. "The recipe is specific." "Indeed." She sipped the drink, eyes closing briefly. "You're not from here originally." "Born here, raised in California." "Ah." She nodded, as if this explained something. "So you have roots, but no depth. You know the islands, but don't feel them in your bones." I shifted uncomfortably. "Is there anything else I can get you?" "Tell me, Kai, do you know why I order this drink?" She swirled the vibrant liquid. "Pineapple for sweetness, grenadine for blood. The islands give sweetness, but they demand blood in return." A server called my name from the bar. I glanced over my shoulder. A dozen customers waited. I should get back to work. "One moment." She reached into a small purse and withdrew something wrapped in a banana leaf. A gift for honoring the recipe. She unwrapped it slightly, revealing gleaming black sand. My pulse quickened as I remembered the sand in my shoes last night. "I can't accept that," I said quickly. Her expression hardened. "You refuse my gift?" "Rule 5, I said. "No gifts from the sea." For a heartbeat, I thought I saw flames flicker in her pupils. Then she laughed, rewrapping the leaf. "Very good. Leilani taught you well." She tucked the package away. "I'll be watching your progress here, Kai Nakamura." I returned to the bar, hands trembling slightly. Leilani caught my eye, and I nodded to indicate all was well. She visibly relaxed. Hours later, as we closed, I looked for the woman in red, but her table stood empty, the Madame Pele special, untouched. She didn't drink it, I told Leilani as we cleaned. They never do. She collected the full glass with a napkin, careful not to touch the liquid. It's not about drinking, it's about offering. Who was she? Leilani carried the glass to a back sink used only for hand-washing bar tools. What did she look like to you? I described the woman, 40-ish, red dress, dark hair. Jimmy in the kitchen saw an old woman in a muumuu, Leilani said. Malia, the server, saw a teenage girl in shorts and a tank top. My stomach tightened. That's not possible. She appears differently to everyone. Leilani poured the drink down the sink, then rinsed it with fresh water. But always asks for the same thing. Is she? I hesitated, feeling foolish. Is she actually Pele? Maybe, or something wearing her aspect. Leilani placed the empty glass in a special cabinet. The islands have older beings than even the Hawaiian gods. Things that were here before people arrived. What would have happened if I'd given her rum in that drink? Leilani's face darkened. A bartender did that in 1982. Josh, mainlander like you, thought the rules were jokes. She closed the cabinet firmly. They found him 3 days later in a lava tube near Kilauea. His body was cooked from the inside out. Coroner said his blood had boiled. I swallowed hard. You're serious. This isn't a game, Kai. These rules protect you. She locked the cabinet. The woman tests new employees. Others will test you, too. Like the man last night. Exactly. They're curious about you. She handed me a small pouch of salt. Keep this with you. It helps. Later, driving home, I took the long route along the beach. The moon hung low over the water, casting a silver path across the waves. For a moment, I thought I saw a woman in red walking along that moonlit trail, directly across the surface of the ocean. I blinked, and she vanished. 2 weeks passed. I settled into a routine at Kahuna's, learning the rhythms of the bar and its peculiar rules. During daylight hours, I helped Dad with his therapy, drove him to doctor appointments, and tried to ignore the increasingly cold texts from my girlfriend. Friday night brought a group celebrating a successful business deal. 15 men in loosened ties occupied our largest table, ordering rounds of expensive cocktails and appetizers. The bar hummed with activity, tourists mingling with the occasional local ukulele music floating from our sound system, tiki torches casting amber light across wooden tables. Leilani approached as I mixed a batch of Mai Tais. "Anakala Keoki is here," she murmured. I glanced toward the door. An elderly Hawaiian man entered, his white hair pulled back in a long ponytail. He walked with a carved wooden cane, yet moved with surprising agility. "Who's that?" I asked, garnishing the drinks with pineapple wedges. "Elder from YMI, respected Kahuna." At my blank look, she added, "Traditional priest, spiritual leader." The old man settled at the bar directly in front of me. Up close, his skin was etched with deep lines, his eyes clear and sharp beneath heavy brows. "Aloha, Anakala," Leilani greeted him warmly. "The usual?" He nodded, gaze fixed on me. "This the keiki you mentioned?" "Yes, this is Kai." "Half-blood," the old man observed. "Island-born but raised elsewhere." I extended my hand. "Nice to meet you, sir." He ignored my hand. "You feel them yet? The ones who watch this place?" Before I could answer, Leilani placed a shot glass before him, filled with clear liquid. "Water," she told me, "from a specific spring in Waianae. We keep it for him." The old man drank it in one swallow. Good water, clean spirits. He set down the glass. "Boy doesn't understand yet, Leilani." "He's learning," she defended. "Followed all the rules so far." "Easy when sun shines," Anakala Keoki replied. "Test comes in darkness." I felt like they were talking around me. "Sir, if there's something I should know." "Too much to know. Not enough time." He tapped his cane against the bar. "Tonight brings high tide, new moon, strong night for ocean spirits." "Meaning what?" I asked. "Watch the water," he said cryptically. "Listen for pahu drums." Leilani touched my arm. "Rule 4. When you hear drumming from the beach, close all windows immediately." The old man nodded approvingly. "You remember. Good." He reached into a pouch at his waist and withdrew a small carved figurine, a tiki about 3 inches tall, made from dark wood. "Keep this near register. Protection." Leilani accepted it reverently. "Mahalo, Anakala." "Not for you," he said. "For him. They curious about new blood." After setting the figurine beside the register, the old man slid off his stool. "Moon rises soon. I go now." He fixed me with those penetrating eyes. "When drums come, boy, you close everything. No hesitation, no questions. Understand?" I nodded. I never looked directly at who plays them. With that enigmatic warning, he left. "Who is he really?" I asked Leilani once he'd gone. "One who remembers the old ways," she replied, placing the tiki figure carefully beside our register. "He helps protect this place." "From what?" I pressed. She turned to me, expression serious. "There's a reason hotels along this stretch have bad luck. Disappearances, accidents. Before Waikiki was tourist central, this area was kapu, sacred and forbidden. The barrier between worlds thins here, especially during certain moon phases." "You actually believe all this?" Her eyes hardened. "You saw the sand in your shoes, the woman who appeared differently to everyone. What more proof do you need?" Before I could respond, The businessman at the large table called for another round. I returned to work, but Anakala Keoki's warning echoed in my mind. Around 11:30, the night shifted. The air turned heavy, dense with humidity despite the ceiling fans spinning overhead. The tide must have rolled in because the sound of waves grew louder, more insistent. Conversations seemed muted, as if traveling through water to reach my ears. I served drinks and collected payment, trying to ignore the prickling sensation at the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched. At midnight, Leilani made an unusual announcement. Due to a private event, we'll be closing at 1 a.m. tonight instead of 2. Last call in 45 minutes. She ignored the grumbles from remaining customers. The businessmen had dwindled to 3, stubbornly ordering more drinks. A handful of tourists lingered at scattered tables. Through the open windows facing the beach, I saw the moonless sky hanging black above the ocean. "Early closing?" I asked Leilani when she returned to the bar. "New moon," she replied tersely. "Bad night to be open late." She glanced at her watch. "Lock the storeroom now. Rule 3. The back storeroom remains locked between midnight and 3 a.m. for any reason. I dutifully secured the storeroom, double-checking the lock. When I returned, Leilani was closing windows on the beach side of the bar. "But it's not even raining," protested a sunburned tourist as she shut the window near his table. "Building regulations," she lied smoothly. "Fire code." I continued serving drinks, noticing Leilani growing increasingly tense as 1 a.m. approached. She kept glancing toward the beach, visible through the one window we'd left open for ventilation. "Last call," I announced at 12:45. Most remaining patrons settled their tabs and filtered out into the night. The 3 businessmen resisted. "Come on, one more round," slurred the apparent leader, a broad man with a Rolex and thinning hair. "We're celebrating." "Sorry, sir. We need to close on time tonight," Leilani said firmly. "It's vacation. Rules are meant to be broken." Another man laughed, clearly intoxicated. At his words, the lights flickered briefly. The open window burst in from a sudden seaward gust, its shutters slamming against the wall. And that's when I heard it, a faint rhythm carried on the wind. Distant drums beating in a pattern that raised the hairs on my arms. Leilani's head snapped toward the sound. "Kai, the window, now!" I rushed to the open window, fighting against the wind that seemed determined to keep it open. Through the darkness, I saw movement on the beach. Shadowy figures gathered at the water's edge. The drumming grew louder. With a final push, I slammed the window shut and locked it. Leilani was already herding the remaining customers toward the exit. "We're closed. Everyone out. No exceptions," she insisted, her voice leaving no room for argument. "But our drinks," the businessman began. "On the house. Please leave immediately." She practically pushed them through the door. The drumming intensified, now a physical pressure against the glass of the windows. I felt it reverberating in my chest, matching my heartbeat, then subtly altering it, trying to synchronize with the external rhythm. As the last customer stumbled out, Leilani locked the front door and turned off the open sign. The normal lights dimmed automatically, leaving only the oil lamps along the bar, providing soft, wavering illumination. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "They're coming to shore," Leilani whispered. "Night marchers." "Night what?" "Wakaipo. Procession of ancient warrior spirits. They march on moonless nights along certain paths." She motioned for me to stay low behind the bar. "This building sits on their trail." The drumming grew louder still, impossible to ignore. Other sounds joined it, a rhythmic shuffling like numerous feet on sand, the clatter of what might have been spears or other weapons, and voices chanting in Hawaiian too ancient for me to understand. "Why did we have to close the windows?" I whispered. "Looking upon the night marchers means death," Leilani replied. "Meeting their eyes, they'll take your spirit with them." "That's just superstition," I began. A thunderous boom shook the entire building, as if something massive had struck the outer wall. Bottles rattled on shelves. The bar lights flickered, then stabilized. "If they can't enter, they'll try to make us look," Leilani warned. "Cover your ears. Don't listen to any voices calling your name." The procession seemed to surround the building now. Through the windows, though I dared not look directly, I sensed movement, shadow figures passing by. The pressure in the air increased until my ears popped. Something scraped against the glass, nails or spear points tracing patterns across its surface. The temperature plummeted. My breath fogged in front of me. Then I heard it. A voice, deep and resonant, speaking my name. "Kai Nakamura," it called. "Kano Hikeki, look upon us." The compulsion to turn, to peer through the windows nearly overwhelmed me. Something ancient and powerful pulled at my consciousness. "Son of Nakamura," the voice continued, now directly outside the window nearest me. "Your grandmother knew us, honored us. Will you deny your ancestry?" I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting the urge. Beside me, Leilani clutched the small Titi figure Anakala Kyoki had left, muttering what sounded like a prayer. The voice grew angry. "Look at us!" The window nearest me cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the glass. Cold air seeped through. Leilani pressed the Tiki figure into my hand. It burned hot against my palm. The procession circled the building once more, drums beating a frenzied rhythm. The chanting rose to a crescendo, then suddenly, silence, complete, absolute silence. The pressure disappeared. Warmth gradually returned to the air. "Are they gone?" I whispered. "For now," Leilani said, slowly rising from behind the bar. "They can only stay until the first hint of dawn." I looked down at the tiki in my hand. The wood had darkened, as if scorched from within. "What would have happened if I'd looked?" I asked. "Best not to find out." She took the figurine gently. "This protected you. Anakala knew they would call to you specifically. Why me? New blood draws their attention, and you're connected to this place through your ancestry." She placed the tiki back by the register. "The night marchers remember family lines. Your grandmother probably made offerings to them." I recalled Grandma's stern warnings about certain beaches at night, the food she would sometimes leave outside on dark moon nights, practices I'd dismissed as old folk traditions. "This is real?" I murmured. Not quite a question. "All of it," Leilani confirmed. "The rules aren't arbitrary, Kai. They're survival." As we finished closing, I noticed the window that had cracked was completely intact. No sign of damage anywhere. But inside my shoes, once again, I found black sand. After the night of the drums, I couldn't dismiss what was happening at Kahuna's as mere superstition. The next morning, I drove to my father's physical therapy appointment earlier than usual, determined to ask him what he knew. I found Dad already dressed, sipping coffee on our small lanai. "You look tired," he observed as I joined him. "Late shift again?" "Something like that." I sat across from him, watching myna birds hop across the lawn. "Dad, what do you know about night marchers?" His coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. "Why are you asking about that?" "Just curious. Heard some tourists talking about it." Dad set his cup down. "Huakai Po, the ghostly procession of ancient warriors. My mother, your grandmother, believed in them completely. He studied my face. She claimed to have seen them once, as a child on the Big Island. Said that's why she always left offerings on certain nights. Did you ever see anything? No, he admitted, but there were places she wouldn't let me go after dark. Trails and beaches where the processions were said to cross. Like the stretch near Kahuna's? His eyes narrowed. What happened at work, Kai? I hesitated, then told him about the drumming, the voices, the temperature drop. I left out the part about the voice knowing my name. Dad listened without interrupting. When I finished, he rubbed his weakened arm, a habit he'd developed since the stroke. That bar sits on an old pathway, he finally said. Before the hotels, before the tourists, it was kapu, forbidden to walk there at night. When developers came in the 60s and 70s, most locals warned them. But money speaks louder than warnings. So these spirits, they're real. What do you think? He turned the question back on me. I thought about the black sand in my shoes, the woman who appeared differently to each observer, the voice calling my name. I think I've seen things I can't explain, I admitted. Dad nodded. Kahuna's was built by a man who understood that, a Hyoli developer named Gregory Martin. Unlike the others, he sought permission. Permission from whom? From those who came before, through proper channels, kahunas, ceremonies, offerings. Dad gazed toward the distant mountains. That's why Kahuna's stands while other businesses in that area have failed. Martin made arrangements. There's that word again. Arrangements. Yes. Bargains with forces we've forgotten how to see. Dad finished his coffee. Your grandmother would say you're being noticed because of your bloodline. Island spirits recognize their own, even diluted by generations away. What about the storeroom? I asked. Why can't it be opened between midnight and 3 a.m.? Dad's expression darkened. I don't know specifics, but those hours, especially the third hour after midnight, that's when the veil thins. In many traditions, not just Hawaiian, 3 a.m. marks when spirits have the most power. I drove Dad to his appointment, my mind churning. Later that afternoon, I searched online for information about Kahuna's and its founder. There wasn't much, just tourist reviews and mentions on Waikiki bar guides. Nothing about Gregory Martin or sacred pathways, but I did find one interesting forum post from 5 years ago. Worked at Kahuna's in Waikiki back in 2018. Weirdest job ever. Manager had all these rules we had to follow. Never break them. Friend of mine needed supplies from storeroom after midnight. Opened door and disappeared for 3 days. Came back with no memory. Quit immediately. That place isn't right. The post had no replies, and the account was deleted. That night at Kahuna's, I arrived early to look around. The bar was empty except for Leilani, who was reviewing inventory lists in her small office. I took the opportunity to examine the storeroom during daylight hours. It was ordinary enough. Shelves stocked with liquor bottles, cleaning supplies, bar tools, and promotional materials. The back wall held extra glasses and mugs, nothing seemingly magical or mysterious. The only unusual feature was the door itself, heavier than necessary for a storeroom, with 3 separate locks. Above the doorframe, nearly hidden unless you looked for it, was a carving of a stylized face, stern and watchful. That's Cain, Leilani said behind me, making me jump. God of creation and fresh water. Why is he guarding the storeroom? Not guarding, containing. She checked her watch. We open in 15 minutes. Let's get ready. The evening progressed normally. Wednesday crowds were thinner, mostly hotel guests from nearby properties. Around 11 p.m., Leilani received a phone call and frowned. Emergency with my son's babysitter, she explained. "I need to leave. Can you handle closing?" "Of course," I assured her. "Remember, lock the storeroom by midnight, no exceptions." She nodded. "And don't forget to pour the offering before you leave." She indicated a small wooden bowl near the register. "Ocean water in the bowl? Place it outside the back door." After Leilani left, the remaining hours passed smoothly. By 1:30 a.m., only a young couple remained, finishing their cocktails in a corner booth. I was wiping down the bar when I heard a loud thump from the storeroom. I froze, cloth in hand. Another thump, followed by what sounded like bottles rattling on shelves. "Did you hear that?" the woman at the booth asked her companion. "Probably just the building settling," he replied. I checked my watch, 1:47 a.m. The storeroom was locked as required, but something was inside, or something wanted in. The couple finished their drinks and left, leaving me alone in the bar. The thumping continued intermittently. At one point, I swore I heard scratching against the door, like nails or claws. At 2:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Jimmy, our night cook. "Left my wallet in the supply room earlier. Need it for bus home. You still there?" I texted back. "Yes, but storeroom's locked until 3. The response came quickly. "Please, man, last bus is at 2:30. Can't get home without ID, bus pass, and wallet." I glanced at the storeroom door. The thumping had stopped. Rule 3 was explicit. The back storeroom remains locked between midnight and 3 a.m. for any reason. But this was Jimmy. A real person with a real problem. What was I supposed to do? Make him stranded all night over some superstition? "Give me 5 minutes to find it," I texted back. I approached the storeroom door cautiously. The carving of Cain seemed to watch me, its wooden eyes somehow attentive. I took out my keys, hand hesitating over the lock. A cold breath of air brushed my neck, though no windows were open. The lights in the hallway dimmed slightly. My phone buzzed again. "Hurry, man. Only 10 minutes till bus." Decision made. I inserted the key in the first lock. The metal turned cold in my hand, so cold it nearly burned. I pulled back instinctively. My phone rang, Jimmy calling now. I answered. "Hey, I'm trying to get in, but..." "Don't open that door," came a voice that was definitely not Jimmy's. It was deep, layered with something that made my skin crawl. "Not yet time." I ended the call immediately, backing away from the door. My phone buzzed again with texts. "Almost there? Need my wallet, please, Kai." The last message made my blood freeze. I'd never told Jimmy my name. In the kitchen, he only ever called me Bartender or New Guy. I silenced my phone and retreated to the bar. The oil lamps flickered as I passed, though there was no breeze. At precisely 2:30 a.m., the thumping at the storeroom resumed, louder now, angry. The door rattled in its frame. I sat behind the bar, the small tiki figure clutched in my hand, watching the minutes crawl by. At 2:58, the noise reached a crescendo, the entire hallway filling with sounds of crashing and banging. The lights flickered rapidly. Then my phone lit up with a call. No caller ID. Against better judgment, I answered. "Hello?" Silence then. "You chose wisely, Kai Nakamura." It was Anakala Kiyoki's voice. Not everyone passes that test. The call ended. At exactly 3 a.m., all noise from the storeroom ceased. The lights stabilized. I waited 5 more minutes before approaching the door again. The locks turned easily now, the metal warm to the touch. Inside, everything was perfectly in order. Not a bottle out of place. No sign of disturbance. No wallet anywhere. Later, as I was leaving, I remembered to fill the wooden bowl with seawater from a container kept in the fridge. I placed it outside the back door as instructed. When I returned in the morning, The bowl was empty and dry, as if someone, or something, had accepted the offering. Jimmy, when he arrived for his shift, had his wallet in his back pocket. He looked confused when I mentioned the texts. "My phone died yesterday," he said, showing me his cracked screen. "Haven't charged it since Monday." The following Monday, Dad had an MRI scheduled at Queen's Medical Center. I dropped him off and wandered to the hospital cafeteria to wait, exhausted from another night of strange occurrences at Kahuna's. While nursing a mediocre coffee, I scrolled through my phone, researching anything I could find about Hawaiian mythology related to bars or crossroads. My search yielded little beyond tourist websites with watered-down versions of Pele legends. "You look like you haven't slept in days," a voice observed. I glanced up to see a middle-aged white man in an expensive aloha shirt, holding a coffee cup. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "All the other tables are full." I gestured to the empty chair across from me. The cafeteria was indeed crowded with staff and visitors. "Thanks." He sat down. "I'm waiting for my father. Outpatient procedure." "Same here," I replied. The man studied me over his coffee cup. "Sorry for staring, but you remind me of someone. Do you work in Waikiki by any chance?" I tensed, suddenly wary. After the fake texts from Jimmy, I'd grown suspicious of strangers showing interest in me. "I tend bar," I answered vaguely. "At Kahuna's," he said, not a question. "I recognized you from the security footage Leilani sent me." My hand tightened around my coffee cup. "Who are you?" "Thomas Martin." He extended his hand. "My father opened Kahuna's in 1972. I manage the business side now." I shook his hand cautiously. "Kai Nakamura." "I know. Leilani speaks highly of you." His blue eyes assessed me. "Says you've followed the rules diligently. That's rare for newcomers." "You're the mysterious owner who never shows his face." Thomas smiled. "I visit occasionally, but yes, I keep my distance. The arrangement works better that way." There was that word again. Arrangement. "What arrangement exactly?" I asked. Thomas glanced around the crowded cafeteria, then lowered his voice. "My father was different from other developers. When he came to Hawaii in the late 60s, he respected the land and its inhabitants, both seen and unseen." "You mean spirits?" "Among other things." He sipped his coffee. "When he wanted to build on that particular spot in Waikiki, locals warned him about the night marcher's path, the thin boundary there. Instead of dismissing them, he sought guidance from Kahuna's." "Like Imakala Keoki?" Thomas nodded. "His father, actually. They told Dad he could build there, but only with proper protocols, rules that must never be broken." "And your father agreed?" "He more than agreed. He became a student of Hawaiian spirituality, learned the old ways, the proper offerings." Thomas set down his cup. "The rules at Kahuna's aren't arbitrary. Each addresses a specific entity or energy that claims that space." I thought about my recent experiences. The night marchers, the woman who orders the Pele special. More like a thin spot, a place where our world and theirs overlap. Thomas reached into his pocket and withdrew a small envelope, "Which brings me to why I wanted to meet you." He slid the envelope across the table. Inside was a check for $5,000. "What's this?" I asked. "Bonus. Leilani reported your incident with the storeroom, how something tried to trick you into opening it." He tapped the check. "Not everyone passes that test. The last bartender who opened that door during the forbidden hours disappeared for 3 days. Came back, changed." I recalled the forum post I'd found. "What happened to him?" "Her." Thomas corrected. She quit immediately. Last I heard, she was in a psychiatric facility in California. Wouldn't stop talking about the people beneath the storeroom who wanted to replace her. My mouth went dry. Replace her? The entities contained by that room don't just want out, Kai. They want in, into our world, into human hosts. He pushed the check closer. Take it. You've earned it. I stared at the check, but didn't touch it. Why are you really giving me this? Thomas smiled faintly. Perspicacious. My father would have liked you. He sighed. The truth is, we need you to take on more responsibility at Kahuna's. Leilani's husband received a job offer in Maui. They're moving next month. You want me to manage the bar? Eventually. For now, we need you to work more nights, including the difficult ones, new moons, solstices, the night of wandering souls. My pulse quickened. Those are the dangerous nights, aren't they? Yes, when the veil things most. Thomas studied me. You have Hawaiian blood. The spirits respond differently to you. They're curious, testing. That gives you an advantage, but also makes you a target. I thought about the voice calling my name during the night march, how it mentioned my ancestry. What if I say no? Go back to California? You could, Thomas acknowledged, but I think you know it's not that simple anymore. You've been noticed, marked in a way. The black sand in my shoes, the connection established. Take the check, Thomas said. Consider it hazard pay. An announcement came over the hospital PA system. Dad's procedure was complete. I stood, leaving the envelope untouched. I need to think about it. Thomas nodded, understanding. Take your time, but not too much. Oban Festival is coming. The night when ancestors return. It will be active at Kahuna's. As I turned to leave, he added, one more thing. Rule 5. Never accept gifts from the sea. That extends to any unusual items you find. Shells, coral, smoothed glass. Anything that doesn't belong to you. Why? Accepting such gifts creates obligation, debt. In Hawaiian tradition, gifts must be reciprocated. His expression grew serious. And you don't want to owe these entities anything. That night, I worked a slower shift at Kahuna's. Tuesday crowds were thin. Mostly hotel guests seeking refuge from inflated resort bar prices. The conversation with Thomas weighed on my mind as I mixed drinks and made small talk. Around 10 p.m., a young couple took seats at the bar. Honeymooners from their matching wedding bands and sun-flushed excitement. They ordered elaborate cocktails and asked me to take their photo with the decorative surfboard mounted on the wall. We're collecting all the authentic Hawaiian experiences, the woman explained, blonde hair falling in beach-tousled waves. Our guidebook said this place has the best Mai Tais in Waikiki. I smiled politely, having heard this countless times before. What brings you to Hawaii? Wedding and honeymoon combined, the man replied. We got married at sunset yesterday, right on the beach. Congratulations, I said, mixing their drinks. Where was the ceremony? Makapu'u Beach, the woman answered. It was perfect. We even collected some lava rocks as souvenirs. My hand stilled on the cocktail shaker. You took rocks from the beach? Just tiny ones, she assured me, for our memory shelf at home. I thought about Pele's curse, mentioned in countless guidebooks, yet still ignored by tourists. You might want to reconsider taking those home. Oh, we know about that silly curse, the man laughed. But it's just superstition, right? I mean, you live here. You don't really believe that stuff, do you? A month ago, I would have agreed with him. Now, after what I'd witnessed at Kahuna's, I wasn't so sure. Let's just say there's usually wisdom behind local traditions, I replied diplomatically, serving their drinks. They enjoyed their cocktails, and left an hour later, dismissing my gentle warning with good-natured humor. As the night progressed, customers thinned out. By midnight, only the bartender from a nearby hotel remained, nursing a beer after his shift. I was wiping down the bar when the door opened, bringing in a gust of salt-laden air. The last customer had arrived, the same older local man from my first night, wearing the identical faded aloha shirt. He nodded to me as if we were old friends and took his usual seat at the far end of the bar. "How's that tie?" he greeted, voice still carrying that grainy quality I remembered. "Rum and Coke tonight." Rule 1 flashed in my mind. Never serve the last customer of the night a drink with rum. "Sorry, still out of rum," I said, repeating my previous lie. He smiled, teeth gleaming unnaturally white against his weathered skin. "You told me that last time. I know you have rum. Every Tiki Bar has rum." The other bartender looked up, curious about our exchange. "Just whiskey tonight," I insisted. The man leaned forward. "What if I told you I'm Kanaloa? Would you deny a god his preferred drink?" My pulse quickened. "If you were Kanaloa, you'd understand why I can't serve you rum." His smile widened. "Smart boy. Growing into your blood, aren't you?" He drummed fingers against the bar top. "Whiskey then. And your friend here is leaving, yes?" As if on cue, the other bartender checked his watch, finished his beer, and stood. "Gotta run. Early shift tomorrow." "Thanks, man." After he left, I was alone with my unusual customer. I poured his whiskey and slid it across the bar without touching his hands. "The owner's son found you," he observed, sipping the amber liquid. "Offered you money, responsibilities." I stiffened. "How do you know that?" "I know many things. The currents bring me news." He swirled his drink. "The honeymoon couple you warned. Too late for them." "What do you mean?" "They took what wasn't theirs. Now they're marked." He traced a symbol on the condensation his glass left on the bar top. "Like you're marked, but different. Pele doesn't forgive easily." "Are you saying something will happen to them?" The water stopped flowing. The lights returned to normal. His eyes resumed their human appearance. "The arrangements Thomas spoke of, they're wearing thin," he said, voice now deeper, resonating. "The barrier weakens. Others push against it, hungry for this world." "What others?" "Older things, nameless things, some from beneath the island, some from beneath the sea." He finished his whiskey. "The rules protect you, but they must be reinforced soon, properly, with the right offerings." "What offerings?" "That's not for me to say. Ask the kahuna." He stood, placing money on the bar. "Beware the storeroom. What it contains predates me. Predates Pele. Predates the islands themselves." As he moved toward the door, I noticed something alarming. His feet left wet prints on the floor, not water but what looked like black sand. "Who are you really?" I called after him. He paused at the threshold. "Sometimes I'm Kanaloa. Sometimes I'm older than names. But always, I watch this place." His form seemed to waver, like heat rising from hot pavement. "You're interesting, Kai Nakamura. Blood of the islands, but mind of the mainland. Got between worlds, like this bar." After he left, I followed procedure, sprinkling salt where he'd sat, wiping his glass with a napkin rather than touching it directly. The black sand footprints remained visible until I swept them up, collecting the grains in a small bowl that I later emptied into the ocean as Leilani had taught me. That night, I dreamed of the storeroom door opening, but instead of darkness beyond, I saw only endless ocean, deep, ancient, and filled with watching eyes. 3 days after meeting Thomas Martin, I cashed his check. Dad's medical bills had piled up, and pride wouldn't pay them. When I arrived for my shift that evening, Leilani noticed the change immediately. "You took the offer," she said, arranging fresh flowers in small vases throughout the bar. How could you tell? You carry it differently now, the responsibility. She placed a vase of red anthuriums on the bar, and Thomas texted me. Were you planning to tell me you're leaving? I asked. She paused. When I knew you were staying. No point otherwise. And if I'd refused? Another would be chosen. She adjusted a flower. But few last as long as you have without breaking rules. The entities favor you in their way. Lucky me, I muttered. Actually, yes. Her expression turned serious. Their attention is dangerous, but their favor offers protection. You'll need it in the coming weeks. Because of Oban Festival? She nodded. And the summer solstice before that. The veil, things on such nights. The veil between what and what exactly? Our world and theirs, reality and the beyond. She finished with the flowers. Tonight is full moon. Should be quiet. The ocean entities retreat during these nights. Too much light. For once, she was right about the quietness. The tourist crowd thinned early, perhaps drawn to moonlight beach walks or luau shows. By 11, only a scattering of customers remained. A group of middle-aged women celebrating a birthday, 2 couples on double dates, and a solitary businessman typing on his laptop. As I restocked garnishes, the front door swung open. A young woman entered, drenched from head to toe, as if she'd walked straight out of the ocean. Water pooled beneath her bare feet. Her sundress clung to her slim frame, and her dark hair hung in wet ropes down her back. None of the remaining customers seemed to notice her. Their conversations continued uninterrupted, eyes never turning toward the dripping figure crossing the room. She approached the bar directly in front of me, leaving a trail of seawater on the hardwood floor. Aloha, she greeted, voice bubbling as if spoken underwater. Mai Tai, please. I glanced toward Leilani, but she was in the back office doing inventory. This seemed like something she should know about. A soaking wet woman no one else could see, but I couldn't leave the bar unattended. ID? I asked, playing for time. The woman smiled, revealing teeth too small and numerous in her mouth. Don't be silly, Kai. You know who I am? I didn't, but pretended otherwise as I prepared her drink. Rough night, you're soaked. I came from below, she replied casually, many leagues down, where the sunlight never reaches. My hands trembled slightly as I measured rum into the shaker. The deep ones asked me to check on you, she continued. They're curious about the new bloodline serving at the crossroads. I placed the Mai Tai before her, careful not to touch her wet fingers. What deep ones? The ancient ones, below the islands. She sipped her drink, leaving no lipstick mark despite her stained coral lips. This land was theirs before it rose from the sea, before your kind, before even the gods you named. I recalled what the last customer, Kanaloa or whatever he truly was, had said about older things beneath the island and sea. What do they want with me? I asked. To know you, to taste your essence. Her smile widened. You carry old blood, island blood. It calls to them across the divide. She reached into a pocket of her dress and withdrew something wrapped in seaweed. A gift. From the deep to you. She placed it on the bar between us. The seaweed unwrapped itself, revealing a stone, black with iridescent blue streaks running through it like veins. Rule 5 screamed in my mind. Never, under any circumstances, accept gifts or tips that come from the sea. It's beautiful, I said carefully, but I can't accept it. Her expression didn't change, but the temperature around us dropped noticeably. You refuse our offering. I appreciate the gesture, but the rules. Rules, she interrupted, voice hardening. Always rules, boundaries, limitations. Water began dripping upward from her hair, defying gravity. The deep ones grow tired of rules. They agreed to the arrangement, I said, echoing what Thomas had told me. With the founder of this place. Arrangements change, bargains wither. She pushed the stone closer. Take it. See what we offer you. The stone seemed to pulse with inner light, the blue veins brightening, then fading like a heartbeat. Something about it pulled at me, urging me to reach out, to touch it, to claim it as mine. I gripped the edge of the bar to resist the compulsion. No. Her face contorted briefly, features rearranging in ways human bone and muscle shouldn't allow. You will change your mind when the pressure grows, when dreams turn dark, when the storeroom speaks to you. She stood abruptly, water cascading from her clothing. Keep the drink. Consider the offer. She turned toward the door, then paused. The kahuna visits the tide pools at Diamond Head tomorrow. Dawn. Seek him if you wish to understand what approaches. She left, trailing seawater that evaporated moments after she passed. The stone remained on the bar, pulsing with that eerie blue light. I called Leilani immediately. Don't touch it, she instructed, examining the stone from different angles. We'd closed early, turning away the few remaining customers with excuses about plumbing problems. What is it? I asked. Deep stone, from beneath the ocean floor. She fetched a pair of wooden tongs from behind the bar. They form where magma meets seawater in the deepest trenches. The blue is older than the islands themselves. She carefully lifted the stone with the tongs. These are rare, powerful. The entities below use them as anchors. Anchors for what? For crossing over. The stones connect our world to theirs. She placed it in a bowl of salt. Did you touch it? No. Good. Direct contact would forge a connection. The salt around the stone began to blacken and sizzle. Accepting such a gift would bind you to them, create obligation. The woman said the deep ones are tired of rules and arrangements. Leilani's expression darkened. They're always testing boundaries. But this, offering a deep stone, that's escalation. They've never been so bold. She carried the bowl to the sink and doused the stone with fresh water, then more salt. The sizzling intensified. We need a makala keoki, she decided. This goes beyond my knowledge. She mentioned him, I said, that he'd be at Diamond Head tomorrow at dawn, the tide pools. Leilani nodded. During full moon, he collects seawater for purification rituals. We'll go together. As she continued neutralizing the stone, I cleaned the strange woman's untouched Mai Tai glass. Why couldn't the other customers see her? Some entities exist between planes, visible only to those they choose to reveal themselves to. She wrapped the stone in ti leaves after the salt treatment. Your blood makes you sensitive to them. Island ancestry. That's what Thomas said, and what she mentioned about my bloodline. They recognize their own. Leilani placed the wrapped stone in a wooden box. Even diluted by generations away, the connection remains. After finishing cleanup, Leilani insisted on driving me home rather than letting me walk to my car alone. They're watching you now, she explained, testing your boundaries. Why me specifically? Timing, bloodline, the thinning veil. She kept her eyes on the dark road, but mostly because they need a bridge, a doorway. To what? Our world, physical form. She glanced at me. The arrangements that contain them weaken during certain times. Solstice. Oban. They seek ways across. And I'm a potential way? Anyone with the right sensitivity could be. But you're particularly suited. Hawaiian blood, but mainland mind. Caught between worlds. Like this intersection between land and sea. The same thing the Kanaloa entity had said about me. What happens if they cross over? Nothing good. She turned onto my street. The old stories speak of possession, body walking. The deep ones especially. They crave physical form, sensation. She pulled up to my father's apartment building. Dawn tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 4:30. I slept poorly that night, dreaming of black stones with blue veins growing inside my body, replacing bone, muscle, and sinew, until I was nothing but a vessel for that pulsing alien material. When Leilani collected me in the pre-dawn darkness, I was already waiting outside, desperate to escape the confines of my dreams. We drove in silence to Diamond Head, parking in the empty lot. The hiking trail that tourists flocked to during daylight hours was deserted. The visitor center closed. Leilani led me down a different path, unmarked and barely visible in the fading night. The tide pools are on the ocean side, she explained as we picked our way down the slope. Sacred place. Kapu to most, but Amikawa has permission from the ancestors. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten as we reached the shoreline. Waves crashed against the volcanic rock, sending spray skyward. In protected pockets, tide pools gleamed like mirrors reflecting the pearl-gray dawn. Amakala Keoki stood knee-deep in one larger pool, his white hair bound in a top knot. He chanted softly, collecting water in a series of gourds arranged by size. He acknowledged us with a nod but continued his ritual until the sun breached the horizon. Only then did he wade out, his traditional malo wrap soaked at the edges. "You brought the stone?" he asked Leilani without preamble. She presented the wooden box. Anakala opened it carefully, examining the wrapped bundle within but not touching it. "Deep stone," he confirmed. "Old magic. Dangerous." "What do we do with it?" I asked. "Return it." He secured the box. "To the depths from which it came, with the proper protocols." "The woman who delivered it—" "Not woman," he interrupted. "Mo'o Wahine, dragon woman of the deep water, ancient guardian turned bitter by time and encroachment." He studied my face. "They offered this to you directly, not through intermediary?" I nodded. "Bold, desperate." He frowned. "The veil phrase faster than we thought." "What exactly is happening?" I asked. "Everyone keeps talking about arrangements and barriers, but nobody explains what's really going on." Amikala Keoki gathered his gourds. "Walk with me." As we followed the shoreline, the rising sun warming our backs, he explained. Before humans, before gods named by humans, the islands belonged to older spirits. When Hawaiians arrived, they made peace with many, named them, incorporated them into our stories. Pele, Kanaloa, others. He paused to secure a loose stopper on one gourd. But some entities resisted naming. Too alien, too other. These retreated to deep places, ocean trenches, lava tubes, caves beneath the island. When Hyolis came with concrete and steel, building over sacred sites, these ancient ones grew restless. And Kahuna's sights on one such site, I guessed. A crossroads of power lines, where land, sea, and underworld connect. He nodded. Gregory Martin understood enough to make arrangements. Bargains. Rules to maintain balance. But such things weaken with time. Leilani, who had been quiet, spoke up. "The solstice is in 3 days. Then Oban next month." "Yes." Anakala looked grim. "The barriers thin most during such times. They will try again, harder." "Try what exactly?" I pressed. "To cross over, to claim vessels, to experience your world directly." His weathered hand gripped my shoulder. "And you, with your blood connection but lack of traditional knowledge, make an ideal doorway." The implications chilled me despite the warming day. How do we stop them? Renew the arrangements. Strengthen the boundaries. His expression turned grave. But it requires sacrifice. Are you willing to give what's necessary? Before I could answer, a wave surged unexpectedly, larger than the others. It crashed against the rocks where we stood, sending spray 20 feet high. As the water receded, something remained at my feet. A perfect spiral shell, iridescent and beautiful. Another gift. Another test. I stepped back without touching it, and Anakala nodded approvingly. You learn quickly, he said. Come, we have preparations to make before the solstice. The summer solstice arrived with unusual weather, dark clouds gathering despite forecasts of clear skies. By afternoon, tourists huddled under beach umbrellas as gusty winds swept along Waikiki. The air felt charged, electric with anticipation. I spent the morning with Anakala Keoki, preparing for the night ahead. We gathered in a small house in Palolo Valley, where he instructed me in the protocol for renewal ceremonies. The sacrifice needed, he explained while mixing the paste of crushed Thai leaves and sea salt, is not what mainlanders imagine when they hear such words. Not blood, then? I asked, only half joking. Nothing so crude. He applied the paste to my forehead, a cool line across my brow. What the deep ones want is connection, sensation, experience. The sacrifice is one of time and consciousness. Meaning? One night you will allow limited access to your senses, a controlled witnessing through your eyes, your ears, nothing more. His weathered fingers traced protection symbols on my wrists. In exchange, they agreed to respect the boundaries for another cycle. My stomach tightened. They'll be inside my head. At a distance, like watching through a window, not occupying the room. He wrapped cords of woven lauhala around my wrists. These bind the connection, limit their reach. Leilani arrived with Thomas Martin. The owner's son looked grave, dressed in formal business attire despite the humid day. Everything ready at the bar? Amagala asked them. Thomas nodded. Closed to the public. Special locks installed on the storeroom. Salt lines refreshed. Ambi offerings. Prepared as instructed, Leilani confirmed. Fresh fruits from 9 islands, water from 4 volcanoes, kava from Kauai. Anakala turned to me. The renewal must be completed before midnight. Are you prepared to serve as the vessel? The weight of his words sank in. I was being asked to allow ancient, inhuman entities limited access to my consciousness. A controlled possession. Every instinct screamed against it. What happens if I refuse? Thomas answered, the barriers weaken further. More incidents occur. Eventually, they find less willing hosts. Tourists, children, anyone sensitive enough to serve as a doorway. And since they wouldn't be restrained by ceremony, Leilani added, those possessions would be complete. Permanent. My father performed this role for 20 years, Thomas said quietly. It's why he built kahunas in the first place. A container. A meeting ground. When he became ill 5 years ago, Leilani's uncle stepped in. Until his stroke last year, Leilani finished. We've been using temporary measures since then, but the solstice demands renewal. I thought about my father, recovering from his own stroke, about the nightmarish entities testing the boundaries between worlds, about tourists who might become unwitting vessels for ancient, hungry beings. What do I need to do? I asked. Kahuna's looked different that night, stripped of its tourist-friendly elements, revealing something older beneath the veneer. The tiki-themed decorations remained, but now seemed like serious religious icons, rather than kitsch. The bar glowed with dozens of oil lamps, no electric lights in use. Thomas had closed the bar to the public, citing private event. Inside, only 5 people gathered. Thomas, Leilani, Amicala Kyoki, myself, and a woman I hadn't met before. An elderly Hawaiian introduced as Kumu Hina, another spiritual practitioner. The storeroom is the nexus, Amicala explained, guiding me toward it, where the boundaries between worlds are thinnest. You'll sit inside, at the center of the convergence. The thought of entering that room, especially tonight, sent cold ripples down my spine. I thought it was forbidden between midnight and 3 a.m. Under normal circumstances, yes. But tonight, with proper preparations, it becomes the connection point. Leilani unlocked the 3 locks, securing the storeroom door. Inside, the space had been transformed. Shelves pushed aside, floor cleared. A circle of salt surrounded a simple chair in the center. Sit, Amicala instructed. Do not break the salt line. I entered carefully and lowered myself onto the chair. The air inside felt thick, weighted with unseen presence. The Lauhala cords around my wrists seemed to tighten. What will I experience? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They will come as observers first, Kumuhina said, her voice soft but carrying authority. You'll feel their attention, then pressure as they test the boundaries. If it becomes too intense, Amicala added, speak the phrase I taught you. It will limit their access further. They left me alone in the room, closing the door but not locking it. I could hear them outside, beginning a chant in Hawaiian, too ancient for me to understand. The oil lamp in the corner cast jumping shadows across the walls. I focused on breathing steadily, waiting. At first, nothing happened. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The chanting outside continued, rising and falling in hypnotic rhythm. Then, as the sun fully set outside, I felt it. Attention focusing on me. Not from any direction, but from everywhere at once. The sensation of being watched by countless unseen eyes. The air thickened further, pressing against my skin. The shadows in the room darkened, deepened, as if becoming 3-dimensional. Kai Nakamura, a voice whispered directly in my mind. Not one voice, but many layered together, from deep rumbles to high, keening notes. I jolted but remained seated. I'm here, I said aloud. Vessel, the voice that was many acknowledged. You offer window? Yes, I confirmed, recalling Anakala's coaching. I offer limited witnessing as agreed in the original arrangement. The pressure intensified. The Lauhala cords burned against my skin. Not painful, but warm. Active. Show us. Your world through your eyes. The request seemed simple enough, but I sensed hidden complexity beneath it. You may witness through my senses until midnight. No further. Agreement rippled through the air like heat waves. Then came the sensation I was least prepared for. The feeling of my consciousness expanding, stretching to accommodate others. Not pushed aside, but joined by foreign awareness. My vision sharpened suddenly. Colors intensified. The yellow flame of the oil lamp fractured into countless individual hues. I could see dust motes in the air, each one distinct and perfect. My hearing heightened until I could detect individual voices in the chant outside, the subtle differences in pitch and tone. Fascinating, the voices murmured within my mind. Physical sensations, separation, individuality. The experience wasn't painful, but profoundly disorienting, like suddenly having multiple sets of thoughts running simultaneously alongside my own. Show us more, they urged, beyond this room. Not yet, I replied, remembering the protocol. First, renewal of terms. Displeasure rippled through our shared consciousness. Terms restrict, confine. Why accept barriers? Because that was the agreement. You witness, but remain separate, That is the exchange. The pressure increased. The cords around my wrists tightened further, glowing faintly in the dim light. We hunger for more than witnessing, the voices admitted. For touch, taste, direct experience of your realm. That isn't offered, I said firmly. Could take, they suggested, the thought accompanied by a surge of alien will pushing against my own. The Lauhala chords flared brighter, restraining their influence. I recited the phrase Anakala had taught me. Bound by salt and sea, witnessed but not walked, seen but not taken. The pressure receded slightly. I sensed calculation, consideration. The binding weakens, they observed. With each cycle, thinner grows the veil. Then strengthen it, I challenged. Renew properly. What offering exceeds witnessing, they asked. What surpasses the window you provide? I hesitated, then spoke from instinct. Connection without intrusion. Communication without possession. A designated time and place for exchange. Interest pulsed through our shared awareness. Elaborate. Regular ceremonial contact, I proposed. Voluntary witnessing. Mutual exchange of knowledge. But never possession. Never direct control. For several moments, there was only silence in my mind, though I felt their continued presence. Then, acceptable. Terms modified. The air in the room shifted. The oppressive weight lifted slightly, replaced by something more neutral. Not friendly, but not hostile either. Beginning now, they declared. Show us your world vessel. With their agreement sealed, I stood carefully, maintaining the salt circle's integrity. I opened the storeroom door to find the others still chanting, maintaining the protective boundaries. Their expressions registered shock when they saw me moving freely. Amakala stepped forward, studying my face intently. They've agreed, I said, my voice sounding strange to my ears, normal but carrying subtle harmonic undertones. Modified terms, ceremonial contact instead of possession. Unprecedented, Kumuhina whispered. Is it safe? Thomas asked Anakala. The old kahuna circled me slowly, examining the glowing cords at my wrists. The binding holds. The containment remains. He nodded. Proceed with caution. I walked through kahunas, experiencing it through doubled awareness. The entities within my consciousness absorbed everything. The texture of wood beneath my fingers, the scent of ocean through the windows, the ambient sounds of Waikiki at night. Their fascination flowed through our connection. Ancient beings experiencing physical sensation through limited but permitted access to my senses. Beautiful and terrible, they commented as I stepped outside onto the bar's small deck, gazing at the cloudy night sky and the distant lights of hotels. Your kind builds great structures, yet understands so little. We're young compared to you, I acknowledged. Yes. Fleeting. Brief flames. From the corner of my eye, I saw Thomas and Lilani watching anxiously from the doorway. Anakala and Kumuhina continued their chanting, maintaining the ceremonial protection. For the next hour, I walked the boundaries of Kahuna's property, letting the entities experience the physical world through my senses. They remained within the agreed constraints, observing, but not attempting to wrest control. As midnight approached, I returned to the storeroom. The entities seemed to sense the ending of our arrangement. Until next ceremonial contact, they communicated, quarterly, at equinox and solstice. Agreed, I said, settling back into the chair. Your bloodline suited for this exchange, they noted. Neither fully of the island nor fully separate, walking between worlds, as we now do. The shared consciousness began withdrawing, like water receding from shore. Colors dulled to normal perception. Sounds muted to regular human hearing. With a final ripple of awareness, they departed, leaving me alone in my mind once more. Outside, the chanting stopped. The door opened, and Anakala entered, concern etched on his face. "It's done," I told him, my voice my own again. "They've agreed to the new terms." He helped me stand on shaky legs. "What exactly did you offer them?" "Regularly scheduled contact. Ceremonial witnessing 4 times a year." I removed the now darkened Lauhala cords from my wrists. "Communication without possession." "Clever," he murmured, "giving them what they truly seek, connection, without surrendering control." As we joined the others, Thomas approached, relief evident in his stance. "The boundaries hold? The arrangement is renewed?" "Yes," I confirmed, "but changed. I'll need to serve as intermediary at each solstice and equinox." "You're willing?" Leilani asked. I thought about the strange beings I'd just shared consciousness with. Ancient, alien, yet somehow familiar. About the bar that stood at the crossroads between worlds. About my own position, caught between my Hawaiian heritage and mainland upbringing. "Yes," I decided. "I'm willing." Thomas clasped my shoulder. "Then welcome to the family business, officially. Steward of the boundaries." As they began clearing the ceremonial items, I stepped outside again, alone this time. The clouds had parted, revealing a star-filled sky. The summer solstice night stretched peaceful and quiet around me, but now I knew what lurked beneath that peaceful surface, what watched from beyond the veil, ancient and patient and curious. And I had become their window to our world. The autumn equinox arrived with gentle rains. Tourists huddled under the awning of kahunas, unaware of the significance the day held for the establishment or its head bartender. I wiped down the counter, watching raindrops trace patterns on the windows. The ceremonial preparations were complete. Salt lines refreshed, offerings arranged in the storeroom, protective symbols drawn. At midnight, I would once again open my consciousness to the watchers beneath the island. My phone buzzed with a text from my now ex-girlfriend in San Diego. "Shipped your remaining stuff today. Hope you're happy with your decision to stay." I was. After the solstice, I'd made peace with my new reality. Dad had improved enough to manage on his own, but I remained in Hawaii regardless. Some connections once formed can't be severed by distance. "Order up, boss," Jimmy called from the kitchen, sliding plates across the pass. I delivered the food to a family of 5 visiting from Japan. Their youngest daughter stared at me with unusual intensity, then whispered something to her mother. The woman smiled apologetically. "She says you have friends in your shadow," she translated. "Children's imagination, sorry." I smiled back. "No worries. Kids see things adults miss." Behind the bar, Leilani, now training her replacement before moving to Maui, caught my eye knowingly. The rules of kahunas remained posted for every employee, though they'd evolved since my arrival. A 6th rule now appeared on the card. 6. On equinox and solstice nights, the owner conducts inventory alone. No staff remains after 11 p.m. The inventory was our cover for the communion ritual. Only Thomas, Anakala, and Leilani knew what really happened on those quarterly boundaries between seasons. At sunset, Thomas arrived, carrying the wooden box containing ceremonial items. "Everything ready?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "The storeroom's prepared." "Any activity this week?" He glanced toward the beach-facing windows. "Just small things. Water running uphill in the sink. Glasses rearranging themselves. They're eager for tonight." Thomas smiled grimly. "Better controlled communication than random manifestations." After closing, I sat alone in the storeroom, centered in the salt circle. The cords around my wrists glowed softly in anticipation. The familiar sensation washed over me, consciousness expanding, stretching to accommodate ancient awareness. Unlike the first time, I welcomed it, understanding the boundaries that protected both sides. "Vessel," they greeted. "Window keeper." "I'm here," I replied aloud. As arranged. Their curiosity flowed through our connection, hunger for sensation, for understanding of the physical world. I provided what was agreed. 2 hours of shared consciousness, experiencing the world through my senses. We walked the beach under moonlight. I let them feel sand between my toes, taste salt spray on my lips, hear waves breaking against shore. Simple pleasures that fascinated beings who existed beyond physical form. "The bargain serves," they communicated. "Better than before. Clear boundaries, mutual respect." "Yes," I agreed. "Better for everyone." As midnight approached, I returned to Kahuna's. He nodded. "Your grandmother would be proud. She always said you had the gift." I thought about the strange path that had led me here. A temporary return to Hawaii, transforming into a permanent role as guardian of ancient arrangements. Bartender by day, intermediary between worlds by night. I'd found my place at the crossroads, between the modern world and the ancient one, between land and sea, between the human and the other. At Kahuna's Tiki Bar, where the rules existed for reasons older than memory, and where I'd finally found a purpose that connected me to the islands of my birth. Some might call it a curse. I called it coming home.